Welcome to the Belly Brain Connection. I'm Hannah Winans. I'm on a mission to help educate people about the connection between their gut health and mental well-being. At least 90% of our serotonin is produced in, and 70% of our immune system resides in our guts. I believe that our gut health is the cornerstone to our overall health, and when we nourish our bodies, we nourish our minds. Belly Brain is for informational purposes only. I'm not offering medical advice here. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician. Thanks for tuning back in. Today is episode 29, and this is part two in the two-part series of metabolic theory for mental health. Last week, I kind of dove back into the book Brain Energy by Dr. Christopher Palmer, and kind of wanted to get back to the root of why I started Belly Brain and really exploring the connection between our metabolic health and our mental health. And that's all kind of newer research that's being done. And I'm really excited that people are actually being healed from their mental health conditions or problems by using diet and nutrition. So pretty amazing stuff. That was the catalyst for Belly Brain was when I first heard about the metabolic theory for mental health. And so I wanted to kind of circle back to that. So that's what we covered last week. I highly recommend you going back to that episode if you haven't heard it. Today, we're going to expand on that. And I want to talk a little bit about diabetes, the connection between diabetes and depression, because when we're looking at the metabolic theory for mental health and we're exploring how our mitochondrial health affects our mental health, when we go back to the metabolic theory, they're really kind of focusing on the fact that inflammation can play a big role. Inflammation in the body, systemic inflammation, can play a big role in what's going on in our brains. And by now, if you've been listening to these episodes, you know the belly brain connection. It's all connected, but I'm really exploring that that metabolic theory. So for diabetes, you may have heard that they're even calling dementia type 3 diabetes because of that connection that they're making and the fact that I just think a lot of us have brains that are on fire and inflammation that's happening that's causing anxiety, depression, dementia, Alzheimer's. I think that's all kind of connected. So that's just my opinion from what I've been researching. But I wanted to explore that a little bit today. And on that note, I've been posting some really good videos and interviews on my Facebook page. So I posted a couple from Dr. Christopher Palmer that are really good. I was really excited because what's his name? Steve Bartlett. He is the Diary of a CEO. He's been really doing some amazing interviews with some of the people that I've been following for years that are really kind of their work and their research are coming to the forefront when it comes to health and nutrition. And so I'm really excited to see that this guy who's got this huge podcast and this huge following is now bringing in and interviewing people that I've really admired for a long time. So very exciting. He interviewed Dr. Ben Bickman, who is the fat doctor, and he's not an MD. He's a professor, but he basically really dives into metabolic health and it's just fascinating. I've been following him for a long time. So really excited about that. So go to my Facebook page. It's Belly Brain Health. I'm trying to post on my podcast there, but I also post videos there, and it's much easier for me to do it there than to post it on the website. Originally, I was trying to post everything that I talk about here on the website, and I just don't have time to do it. So follow me on that Facebook page, and you'll see when I hear a really good interview that I like, I'll talk a little bit about it here on the podcast, but I'll also post it on my Facebook page. I'm right in the middle of a really, really good one with same guy, Diary of a CEO, and he is interviewing a herbal practitioner, which I've always been fascinated with. I'm super into anything homeopathic. So I've always been really fascinated with herbs and how they can heal. And I'm halfway through this fabulous interview with this practitioner. And what's amazing is that, of course, he keeps coming back to the root of all things, the gut. And so listening to this interview just validates even more what I've been talking about. And it's not that I'm even looking for this anymore. I'm just trying to look at the body holistically, look at all kind of all kinds of health benefits of food and medicine, and really trying to look at everything, not just the gut, but everything keeps coming back to the gut. So it's really exciting for me. So I'll post that interview there on my Facebook page. And for today, I'm going to just kind of dive into diabetes and depression, which comes first? And again, in this series, I've really, because I want to get the information to you correctly, I'm doing a lot of reading, so I hope you don't mind, but it's better for me to read the facts than try and kind of freestyle when it comes to this information, because it's really important. So Dr. Christopher Palmer, he posted, or he writes articles for, I think it's psychiatry. Oh, I just lost it. Psychiatry Now. Oh, well, I'll have to source it later. But he is a Harvard psychiatrist and researcher, and so he's been not only did he write the book Brain Energy, but he's also been writing articles. And so this one, diabetes and depression, which comes first, it says these two illnesses have more in common than you probably realize. Diabetes is now an epidemic in the United States. About 1/3 of the US population has either diabetes or prediabetes. It is well established that people who have diabetes are at a much higher risk of developing clinical depression, about double the risk of people who don't have diabetes. What is much less appreciated is that people who start off with depression with normal blood sugars at that time are at much higher risk of developing diabetes in the future. The rates are about 60% higher than in people without depression. Why do these disorders go together so frequently? Is it more than just a coincidence? One of the most popular theories about why people with diabetes have higher rates of depression is that it is difficult to have diabetes, and maybe the stress of having a chronic illness with worries about blood sugar levels, diet, and taking pills or insulin injections would leave anyone feeling down, if not right depressed. Given that diabetes most commonly occurs in those who are overweight or obese, another theory is that our society's bias against heavy people might take a toll on self-image and might make getting a job or dating more difficult, which could leave people feeling depressed. While both of these theories may in fact play a role in causing clinical depression, it appears that there is much more to this connection than simply stress, society, and psychology. Inflammation is found in both disorders. In fact, inflammation in the bloodstream has been found in many chronic disorders, including both diabetes and clinical depression. No one knows for sure what is causing this inflammation, and we don't yet know if it is causing these disorders or simply a consequence of these disorders. In other words, it's possible that inflammation causes both depression and diabetes, or having diabetes or depression causes inflammation. Cortisol is another factor. We know that cortisol is often elevated in people with depression, and we also know that cortisol worsens blood sugar levels and insulin resistance. So this may be a factor in how depression can make diabetes more difficult to control. Okay, so depression is a mental health condition, and here we are now talking about diabetes, which we've always linked as more of a physical disorder, a physical problem, but it's all connected. Once again, we're seeing that belly-brain connection. Do these overlaps of these disorders really matter? Unfortunately, all too often, medical professionals assume that it doesn't. They assume that people simply have two different disorders that really have nothing to do with each other. In reality, people who have diabetes are not only twice as likely to develop depression, but when they do, on average, it lasts 4 times longer in people without diabetes, 92 weeks versus 22 weeks. That's almost 2 years of suffering from depression, even when getting treatment. Likewise, depression can affect diabetes. When depression occurs in people with diabetes, their blood sugar control gets much worse. They tend to have higher blood glucose readings, worse insulin resistance, and higher rates of diabetes complications such as blood vessel damage. Some people assume that this is because people who are depressed might eat more junk food to comfort themselves or may not have enough energy to take care of themselves. While these might be true, it's also possible that the inflammation from having clinical depression also worsens their diabetes. So last episode, we talked about the metabolic theory and the connection between mental health disorders. And, I kind of talked a little bit about people who have had schizophrenia and anxiety and severe mental health disorders that have been helped by changing their diet. Now, again, we're seeing that connection with metabolic health and depression and diabetes. And, I really believe that diabetes plays a role in dementia as well. And personally, my mother-in-law, she had type 2 diabetes for years, and she ended up with Lewy body dementia. And there's so much more that I know now about how we could have helped her with her diet that may have helped. Maybe she wouldn't have gotten dementia if we could have kind of helped with her insulin resistance and her metabolic health. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing in the future what comes out of all this study and research with the metabolic theory for mental health, because if we can see that connection with diabetes and depression, it just kind of that just kind of proves that theory, that there's some merit to that theory. So some of the things that he recommends that can help people who will also help with diabetes and depression. Consider a change in diet. Of course, there is some evidence that the Mediterranean diet can help improve both diabetes and mood, even in people with chronic depression. The Mediterranean diet emphasizes more whole foods and eliminates processed foods and junk foods, which may be enough of a dietary change for some people. Alternatively, diets low in carbohydrates and higher in fat, such as ketogenic diets, have shown more dramatic results, even reversing diabetes in a study of over 300 diabetics. So type 2 diabetes is reversible. I don't know if people realize that. I think they get assigned that that condition, and it's a matter of, okay, well, now you've got to go on insulin, and you've got to go through this protocol. But doctors, especially functional doctors, will tell you this is reversible. You don't have to have type 2 diabetes. You can change this with your diet. And so I want to put that out there, because I've heard people say, oh, well, my doctor told me I have type 2 diabetes. Now I have to do these things. They go on insulin or whatever it is that the medicine that they have to take. And it's like, well, did you guys talk about really diet? You can reverse this. You can reverse this with the choices that you make. And for some people, they can do that. And some people, it's really hard. But it's an option that you should know is out there. So if there's a connection between diabetes and depression, then making that change to help with the diabetes should hopefully help with the depression, just like we've seen with the ketogenic therapy for bipolar disorder and other mental health disorders. So I'm kind of hit that quickly because I want to make sure that you really go back and look at the research. I'm just bringing to you the information that I'm hearing and I'm studying, because I think it's important. But I always, want to make sure that you're going to the source. And I'm just kind of the voice out there trying to get this information to whoever's out there listening, and maybe it's enough to where it'll create some interest and something, get you to dive into these things further. The thing about, I guess, the common denominator with all of these conditions that I keep coming back to is inflammation. And when I was listening to this interview with the Diary of a CEO, and oh gosh, his name is escaping me right now, but I'll put it on Facebook. But with this herbal practitioner, he had a really interesting way of describing inflammation. And I feel like we look at inflammation as like it's a bad thing. At least that's kind of how I think of it. Like, oh, if you're inflamed, you've got a problem. Well, that's probably true. But, your inflammation is your body's way of trying to solve that problem. And so, a lot of the things that in medicines that we take are basically helping with the inflammation, but they're not necessarily getting to the root cause of what's causing the problem. And that's why I love functional medicine so much, because it's really looking at trying to get to that root cause. It's like detective work of what are causing the symptoms. And so what I liked about what this guy had to say was that, there's a lot of herbs, there's a lot of plants, there's a lot of different ways that we can go about healing our bodies, and not necessarily going straight to medicine, which, is really kind of speaks to the heart of what I'm talking about with Belly Brain. And it does a really good job of explaining how some of these things disrupt our gut and what's going on in our gut lining. So a little bit off topic from what I plan to talk about today, but I'm so into this interview right now. I thought it would be fun to share with you guys. And, it's got me excited about maybe doing some future episodes about homeopathic remedies and alternatives to medicine, because a lot of that stuff is our gut disruptors. And so if we can avoid that, that would be great, and get our metabolic health and our mitochondrial health strong, and and really hopefully that'll help us to be mentally clear and happy. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. I will see you guys next episode. I hope this helps. Bye.